Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's call. Gosh, this is kind of fun. There's already over 70 people on the Zoom call. And normally when we start, there's about half of that. We also have people in Facebook and other places where this is being restreamed. So I think this is going to be a really big call, maybe a record-setting call, which is really fun. I want to say thanks to those people that have their cameras on. So thanks, James Stelter, Melissa Brady, Melissa Bradley, excuse me, Keiko, Lindsay Venn. Hey, Lindsay. Hey, Keiko, Stephanie O'Brien, Emery Wetton, Frankie, Rod, Gabriella, Eric, Tracy, Yvette. Guys, your cameras it's always fun to see. Janine, Peter, Adrian, Nori, Lorraine, Damon, William, Denise, Boogie, Bonnie, Jeff, Kimberly. Hey, I see you guys. Brock. Hey, Brock, Anna, Lori, Sheridan, Crystal, Diane. This is cool. I mean, we never have people turn on their cameras like this. Elizabeth Hand, Dean, Kim Harmon. Hey, welcome everybody. If you just turned your camera on, I might have missed you. You might have turned it on after hey, Monica, I see Monica as well. So this is going to be a really special call. And by the way, if you don't mind, just for my own curiosity, drop a line in the chat real fast and just put a note where you're tuning in from. I'll go first. My name's Trent, and today I'm in Utah. So tuning in from Utah, put in the chat where you're tuning in from. There's Lindsay from Idaho. There's Ontario, Canada, South Jordan, Las Vegas, Connecticut, Virginia, Indiana, Texas, North Carolina. Oh, this is cool. All right, you guys, yeah, give a shout out, represent where you're from. Okay. So the scope of this call, if you're on this call, this is going to be really, really fun over the next few minutes. The scope of this call is we are talking about metabolic health, specifically insulin resistance. Now, if you're new and if you have no idea what insulin resistance really is, if you don't understand the mechanics behind it, or if you're just not sure how to fix it, don't worry. That is what this call is all about. We have a very simple protocol that is a protocol that combines intermittent fasting with an increase in dietary fiber. It's fiber and fasting. And the results, the net effect of this protocol, if given, if used properly and given, enough time, is so phenomenal that it will blow your mind. I mean, I'm going to ask for some proof later on this call and show you some proof. And, if you're not convinced yet that this would be the right protocol for you or a loved one, just stay tuned. You won't believe what you're about to see. And I mean it when I say, and I'm not exaggerating when I say, we started these calls because we wanted to change the world. And that is exactly what we're doing. So buckle up. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have a couple of really special guests who I'm excited to get to. First, let me introduce myself just briefly. So some of you may be familiar with me and some may not. And I'll just give you a quick little overview of who I am and why I facilitate these calls every week so that we can get acquainted. So this is me. My name's Trent. This is my dad. 6 years ago, my dad died from stage 4 colon cancer. When my dad got sick, the cancer had already spread all over his body. It was in his liver, it was in his lungs, it was in all of his lymph nodes. And what does a loving son do when he finds out his dad is terminal? I got desperate. I went into a panic and I started to read everything I could read. Now, I'm not a doctor or a scientist or a nutritionist, although we do have a lot of doctors, scientists, and nutritionists that will be joining our calls. And tonight we have some really special ones here. I'm just a regular guy. What do I know? And so I started to read everything I could, desperate to save my dying father. I started to study intermittent fasting. I started to study the importance of gut health, metabolic health, and I really got interested in insulin resistance. And the reason for that is because my dad, long before he had cancer, was insulin resistant. My dad was pre-diabetic. And insulin resistant and pre-diabetic are quite synonymous with each other, although insulin resistance happens even earlier than prediabetes. So my dad had struggled with his weight. He loved food as much as I do and was overweight, extremely overweight most of my adult life. He had psoriasis all over his body, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, was on a cocktail of drugs. And ultimately, it was the insulin resistance that started it all. And so when my dad died, I made it my mission to spread awareness about what could be done early for people that could change or even save lives. Now, it was too late for my dad. However, maybe you have a dad, or a mom or a brother or a sister or somebody that you love, or maybe you're worried about your own health. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you've tried everything and you're scared and discouraged and afraid. I just want to tell you, if you're feeling any of those emotions, you're in the right place. And we're going to show you something that works better than anything I've seen in my life. We're going to show you that this is easier than anything you've ever tried before. And if you just follow along here, we hope to make sense of this by the end of the call. To begin, I wanted to bring on a special guest. So this guest is somebody that was a stranger to me. She was following me on TikTok and saw my videos, and now we are friends. And we've met actually in person. We've actually gotten together. My wife is from Southern California, and so her and I have, been in the same neck of the woods, and we actually got together and met in Las Vegas, and that was really, really fun to see her. But this is Frankie Casarez. Am I saying that right, Frankie?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so Frankie, you have had quite a transformation on this protocol. To begin, tell us a little bit about where you were with your health. What was the situation that led you to being in the state that you were prior to starting this protocol?
Well, about a year and a half ago, I was in a crazy car accident that kind of left me broken in two. And I was laid out in the bed with several broken bones. And yeah, well, I had broken bones. I was having these other symptoms of like really painful hands and painful feet. I had blurry vision. I just had brain fog. And I was like, what is going on with me? And it didn't seem like the other parts of like the broken bones that was going on with me. So I went and saw my doctor, and the doctor was like, whoa, your A1C is at an 8.9. And I was like, how could that be? And she's like, well, you're going to need to cut back on like some carbs and sweets and things. I'm like, listen, I don't really eat like that. I'm pretty like plant-based and I haven't changed my diet. And she's like, well, we're going to have to start you on injections. And I was like, what? I was freaked out. So I was like, there's just no way. I'm super scared of needles and there's just no way I could do it. Is there anything else that you could do? And it was all basically just taking medication. And so it was just like, there's got to be like, there's an herb for that, there's a plant for that. For me, I was more trying to find something like that. And my testing numbers were over 300, and they were just like skyrocketing. And they're like, listen, you're in a really dangerous position, you need to do something. And I said, okay. And that's when I was like going down the rabbit hole, like, because I knew like my mom struggled with diabetes and she also lost her battle about 4 years ago. And I saw that when she got insulin injections, that was kind of like the end of it all. She just went downhill from there. So I thought, oh my gosh, if I'm there, how could that be? And so I found the protocol and I was like, what? I was like, how? I'm like, I would rather like try this plant-based, all natural than to like try to give myself injections. Literally, I would be like trying to like, there's just no way I could do it. So I was like, I got to find another way. So immediately when I started the system, my blood glucose levels went from like over 300 to like in the 200s, like immediately. And I was like, oh my God, amen. And I followed the protocol like religiously. I was like, I would rather do this than do the injections. I'm just going to do this. And I was like, and it was easy. It was probably the easiest thing that was going on in my life because I couldn't walk. I could barely stand. I mean, when I say I was broken in half, I had broken in half. And so in the first month, I was able to like significantly lower my glucose levels from 300s to in the 100s, like 150, 180, which was way better. I was like, okay. And then the first month, I lost 10 pounds. I was like, what? I was like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep doing the drinks, just doing what I'm doing the protocol. Within 2 months, I said, well, I'm going to try this. And I asked my doctor, I'm going to come back and do my lab work and see what's going on because I didn't want to do injections. So within 2 months, I lowered my A1C from 8.9 to a 6.2. And I was like, yes, it's working. But I also lost 20 pounds. And she's like, wow, what are you doing? I said, nothing. I'm laid out in the bed. I can't walk. She's like, well, keep doing whatever you're doing. And, I told her I was doing this and I showed her all the, packages. I read I showed her the PDR. I went down the rabbit hole and looked at all the stuff. And she's like, looks good to me. So I kept doing it. By the third month, I had reversed my diabetes. I had gotten down to, I go, I want to come back next month. They got a 90-day money back guarantee. I want to try it. So I said, okay, I'm back. And normally the doctors don't let you do that, but she's cool with me and I'm cool with her. So she has me in. I went from an 8.9 to a 5.2 in 3 months. I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm like, I'm just gonna stick with it. I've lost 30 pounds in the first 90 days. And listen, I went from a size 2X to a size 10, 12 inside of 3 months. And I say, I have not been a size 10, 12 probably since I was 10 or 12 years old. So I'm pretty happy now. All that neuropathy in my hands and in my feet, gone. Brain fog, gone. So I'm a happy camper over here for sure. Oh, wait, I can't hear you.
Of course, I'm the king of talking while on mute. Whether I'm on the phone or on Zoom, I will talk for hours on mute if you allow me to. So thank you. Okay, so I want to get this straight because, and many people, let me just interpret these numbers for those that aren't familiar with the numbers. Your HbA1c score is the primary score that they look at to determine whether you have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. And an 8.9, which is where Frankie started, is type 2 diabetes. Within 2 months, she got it down to a 6.2, which is pre-diabetes. And a month later, so in 90 days, Frankie, correct me if I'm wrong here, in
Right?
90 days, you went from an 8.9 to a 5.2,
Two. Yeah.
5.2, which is not even a pre-diabetic. It's getting
Right.
very, very healthy. And you went from blood sugars in the 300s to completely normal blood sugar levels. You lost 30 pounds, and you did all of this while being laid up in bed, not able to exercise.
Not at all. Yeah. Couldn't exercise at all. Yeah.
Okay, Frankie, this is amazing, and we don't have much time, so I want to be sensitive to time and don't mean to cut you off. But one last little question. Um, you resisted to go on insulin. They wanted to put you on insulin injections, and you resisted that. Um, what was it about this protocol that, how do I say this? What struggles did you have? I mean, did you have a sweet tooth? Was it snacking? Was it overeating? What was it that you struggled with, and how did this help?
Well, the biggest struggle was the blood glucose spikes. I didn't realize that, we know that stress and trauma, it does elevate our glucose level. And my biggest thing was lowering that glucose level from over 300 to get it down to a normal state. And with the proper, supplement, I was able to get that down along with the fasting. So combined, those really were the big things that were my biggest problem. So, and I've continued to do it the same way. It's been about a year now, and I've still maintained. When I started, I had a 5.0. When I originally, before the accident, I was normal, and then just over time of having high cortisol levels, the fight or flight hormone of like me being broken, my body was under a lot of stress. That was the thing I needed to get down. But by reducing my insulin resistance and becoming sensitive again is the thing that actually got me better. So combined, it was a win-win.
And was your doctor like, what just happened? Was she stoked or he
Yeah.
stoked? Okay.
My doctor's like, I wish all my patients were like you. Like, tell everybody. I was like, yeah, I'm telling everybody
Okay.
because I struggled to help my mom. I had never heard of insulin resistance before. I had heard diabetes, neuropathy, all these things until I understood this. And I was like, all this time, for my whole adult life, I'd helped my mother with diabetes, did everything they said. She never got better. She never lost weight. She never got off her medication. I was like, I'm going the wrong way. Oh my gosh, not anymore. No way.
Reversed it. Oh, love it. Okay. So Frankie, thank you so much. Now,
Thank
Frankie
you.
is not a paid actress, although she probably could be. She lives down near Hollywood. So, Frankie, we really appreciate you being on here. She did this voluntarily, and I just wanted to get some eyeballs on Frankie because what an amazing story from a stranger who heard about this protocol and reversed her type 2 diabetes with it. So that's awesome, Frankie. All right. If Now we have 140 people on the call, just on this Zoom call, plus all the live restreams. If you're somebody that's here for the first time, we want to explain how this protocol works. We want to help you maximize your results. We want to help you if your goal is weight loss, if it's whether it's weight control or diabetes control or gut health or anything else. Maybe it's cholesterol, blood pressure, triglycerides. This protocol works fantastically for helping with a lot of these things. For me specifically, the root cause of my problems were I'm a snacker. I constantly overorder and overeat, and I have a sweet tooth. And this protocol has helped me fix those things, I think, permanently. And so I just love it. And we want to tell you about the protocol. But first, we have a special guest. And so what we're going to do is we have a special guest who's one of the top experts in the world on insulin resistance. And I've invited her to come on these calls from time to time and teach all about insulin resistance. Now, again, I'm not paying her. I have asked her to promote her practice because I really, really appreciate what she's doing. She is literally one of the best in the world. And so I'm going to bring on Lindsay Venn, one of the founding members of the Metabolic Society for Healthcare Practitioners, to talk all about insulin resistance. Now, after Lindsay, I'll explain how the protocol works and explain how to maximize results on it. And then we're going to open up the call. And the whole point of this call is for you to have an opportunity to ask questions and to find out what's going on with you and see if we can help you get fantastic results with this protocol. Now, Lindsay, like I said, is one of the top experts in the world on this. She knows more about insulin resistance than I ever will. And she spends her days, day after day, morning, noon, and night, helping people fix and reverse their insulin resistance. So take it away, Lindsay Venn.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction. So I'm going to try with my iPad again, but we're going to, oh no, it's not going to let me. I'm going to try with the other way. I don't know why. Technology and me does not get along all the time. So let me share my screen for the present, or there's that. That's our place in Belize. If anybody wants to go, it's pretty nice.
I would love to go. Thank you.
Give everybody a little reprieve from winter time, right? So, hey, everybody see that okay? Are you seeing the slideshow or the main
We see the
slide?
prep screen, not the slideshow. You might be sharing the wrong screen.
That's what happens when you take a week off here and aren't used to doing these. So
there you go. That's
better?
perfect. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So like Trent said, my name's Lindsay Venn. I'm a physician assistant as well as a dietitian who is accredited and a founding member of the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. I put Insulin IQ on here on purpose. Like Trent said, it helps me to be able to promote my business in this group. For anybody who has any extra questions or needs more time than we can get on these Wednesday night calls, come visit us. We're happy to help, and we really do support the Feel Great system. So everything goes hand in hand. So first of all, we want to talk about how do you know if you have insulin resistance or not? If you're questioning, well, maybe I have this, maybe I don't. Well, what are some things that might lead you to go down that rabbit hole of getting labs and stuff done? One of the most common ones is skin tags. And I don't think I've ever explained this before, but insulin is a growth hormone. It makes things grow, things that we don't want to grow, especially after we stop growing tall or we're done growing babies. This skin tags is excess skin growth. And so we don't want those things to happen. Acanthosis nigricans, or this darkening the skin, it's excess growth of skin pigment in specific areas, excess belly fat, particularly those that have the protruding belly or the dad bod, those kinds of things. If you're tired all the time, people with insulin resistance are so tired and they just cannot figure out what is going on and why they can't seem to catch up. And they're also hangry. They also just are starving and wishing they had something to eat, particularly things like Trent said that are high in carbohydrate. So if you have any of these, or if you know somebody who has these, chances of you having insulin resistance are pretty high. So I always like to explain why and what, and help you understand why this is important. So insulin, like I said, is a growth hormone. Its job is to facilitate what happens to the energy we eat. The energy we eat oftentimes turns into glucose. Insulin works in this receptor site on the cell, in every single cell of the body, and it opens the door at this GLUT4 transporter for glucose to get in. And so it's just important to realize that you can't use glucose if you don't have insulin in order for that to happen. I was actually listening, it was funny, I was listening to myself give a presentation the other day, and I'm going to mention it, but it kind of goes in order with this thing with Jason Fung. Jason Fung is kind of the main guru of intermittent fasting. He's fantastic, but he talks about insulin resistance being a lot like these conductors on the train, and the job of the conductor is to stuff the train as full as possible. Well, in the human body, what happens, and the reason we become insulin resistant is because our fat cells want to live too. They want to be healthy. They want to function the way they're supposed to function. And when they get too full, they become resistant to insulin, so we can no longer stuff them fuller, right? And so that's where insulin resistance comes from, because we know that when we become hypertrophic, or when we stuff extra fat into our fat cells, it becomes very inflammatory and it creates a lot of problems. And so insulin resistance is almost like a defense mechanism against a crappy diet, or like Frankie said, something that is causing havoc in our bodies. The three main causes of insulin resistance: number one, high levels of insulin from diet, snacking, high sugar intake. Number two, inflammation is huge. It causes insulin resistance. Three, stress. Frankie had a twofold thing going on there. I'm sure it's not easy to lay in bed for that long. The stress, the mental stress from that, as well as the physical stress from the injuries, all leading to insulin resistance. Hypertrophy is how 95% of us are going to store our fat. And that's why most of us become insulin resistant. Hyperplasia is something that people can have also, though it's a much fewer number. So these are people who make more and more teeny tiny fat cells. They do not become insulin resistant because those fat cells are healthy. But again, that's the smallest version of us. The hyperplastic people are the ones who become the people on my 600-pound life, though. There's no stopping the fat growth when it comes to that. So the study that they did in 2019 showed that about 88% of us have some form of insulin resistance, from mild to severe. Only 12% of us are actually healthy. And so it's actually quite startling numbers. And that's why getting the word out for Feel Great is so important. Why does this matter? Well, if you look at the root cause of insulin resistance, look at the number of things that it impacts. If they're chronic disease versus communicable disease. Communicable, and it's just terrible to pronounce, but is a thing that you can catch. You can't go out and catch diabetes. You can't go out and catch fatty liver or PCOS or low testosterone. You can go out and catch the flu or COVID or whatever. So all of these chronic diseases are all related to insulin resistance. And the good news there's bad news, because look at all the things you can get if you don't control your insulin resistance. But the good news is one intervention can fix all of these things, which to me is the best news that you can get. So the first, I'm going to talk about several of those conditions. The first one, and the most common one that we see, and Frankie touched on, is type 2 diabetes. This is diagnosed, like Trent said, after your A1C crosses 6.5. I like to put up this chart because there's a very tiny, tiny difference between diabetic and not diabetic. Your blood sugar here at 6.5 is 154 versus at 6.4 is 151. Literally, you could have those difference in numbers, right? Just picking a different arm to draw the blood or a different finger. And so I don't love A1C as a measure, but it is a great thing to trend, like Frankie had done with hers. And so the big question is, though, is if we know that we're headed that direction because we're insulin resistant and we can catch it 5-10 years sooner, why wouldn't we? And so I'm going to talk to you about how to do that. Hyperinsulinemia comes with insulin resistance. We're going to have higher levels of insulin, but we don't have higher levels of glucose yet. And so we really want to measure a fasting insulin level. And we're going to take that number and calculate it into something called a HOMA-IR. It stands for the homeostatic model of insulin resistance. And so if you go, you can Google, there's a bunch of different calculators. You plug in your fasting glucose, you plug in your fasting insulin. This person, for example, is at 2.8. They have a moderate to severe amount of insulin resistance going on that they would not have caught with a glucose of 95. And so this is a really good thing. If you can, ask your doctor for a fasting insulin and a fasting glucose, and you can help figure this out on your own. We'll talk about another way to do this too when we talk about cholesterol. High blood pressure. This is also extremely common with insulin resistance. People often think hypertension is a disease. Well, for 99.9% of people, it's not. It's just a symptom of insulin resistance, and I'm going to explain why this is. I compare your blood vessels to garden hoses. Somebody last weekend at the Method called me the garden hose lady, so I guess everybody's listening when I talk about this. So garden hose, normal garden hose It is something that is pliable, it's flexible, it's going to expand and contract as we like, and it has a normal amount of volume in it. And that is what somebody without high blood pressure has. When we have high insulin, we have an increase in volume. This happens with a mechanism at the kidney with a hormone called aldosterone, which makes us retain sodium, which makes us retain water. If we lower insulin, we lower aldosterone and we lower that volume. The other problem is insulin resistance of the endothelial lining of the vessels. And those cells, like I said, every single cell in the body can become insulin resistant, including your endothelial lining. When that happens, you have a hose like a garden or like a frozen garden hose. It cannot expand like it's supposed to. This is called vasoconstriction. And when you get that along with increased volume, you are really in a bad spot when it comes to high blood pressure. The good news, again, really quick to resolve if you can get insulin levels down. Coronary artery disease, this is a hot topic for a lot of different reasons. We really like to measure cholesterol, not because of your risk of coronary artery disease, but more because of your risk of insulin resistance. If you have a lipid panel, which I would guarantee every person in this room has had a lipid panel done at some point in their life, you can take your triglyceride, divide it by your HDL, and see what number you have. In Canada, you have to do that and multiply it by 2.3. But if you do that, you can figure out what your risk is. Here's mine. I'll try to find some other examples since I've used this a few weeks in a row, but my triglyceride to HDL ratio is essentially 1.0. Anybody less than 1.8 is considered okay. Anybody at or less than 1 is considered doing really well. And so make sure you figure out what these numbers are and measure your triglyceride to HDL ratio. I really prefer for people to have this number as well as their HOMA-IR number, because sometimes you might miss it with one or the other. This way you've got two pieces of information giving you the information you need. Next is Alzheimer's. I really like to talk about Alzheimer's with my patients because they're terrified of it. And not that I want them to get something that's terrifying, but literally because it brings a stronger call to action because they are scared of it. Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes for a very good reason. It is insulin resistance of the brain. What happens, as you can see in this busy slide down here, is glucose cannot get into the brain because it is resistant to the effects of insulin. Every cell in the body is resistant. And so when we have that, we have a bigger problem because the brain only uses two sources of glucose or of fuel, glucose or ketones. If you don't fast or if you don't follow a ketogenic diet of some sort, you don't make ketones. If you're resistant to glucose, you can't use the glucose, and then we get this dysfunction of the brain leading to Alzheimer's. Also can lead to things like vascular dementia, Parkinson's disease, other neurodegenerative diseases. They've actually done in vitro studies on this. They take brain cells and put them into a petri dish and feed them both glucose and ketones, and the ketones disappear first because the brain actually prefers the ketones. So that's where fasting and the Feel Great system is really quite helpful when it comes to helping prevent or reverse type 3. If you want more information on this, I love this book. Dale Bredesen, The End of Alzheimer's, is a wonderful resource where he recommends fasting and low carb kind of diets, and he recommends the fiber. So fertility, I do a lot of consulting for a fertility company back east. I love talking about fertility. Insulin resistance is the #1 cause of infertility in the United States. Women, obviously, are the only ones, but they can get PCOS because of high levels of insulin. We use something called aromatase to convert androgens to estrogen in order to help us ovulate. If we don't use aromatase, because insulin turns it off, then we have high levels of androgens, those two leading to things that are familiar with PCOS, facial hair, skin tags, the acanthosis nigricans, central adiposity, etc. And so easy to fix. I've helped many women get spontaneously pregnant just by changing their food. Pregnancy, I always like to bring it up as well. You can cause damage during pregnancy if you have very high insulin. This is where these morbidly obese toddlers come from, is when we have really high insulin, the babies actually are predisposed to insulin resistance. So it's a good motivator too for mom to maintain this during pregnancy. And then last with fertility is the guys. Two things that can happen with men. #1, just like the garden hose and high blood pressure, if you are vasoconstricted and you can't vasodilate, that's called erectile dysfunction. So that's obviously a problem. And then also there's lots of studies that show that the higher the insulin, the lower the testosterone. The lower your testosterone, the less sperm cells that are made. And so we can really fix this by changing our insulin levels. Fatty liver, this one is super common. This is now known as the most common or most prevalent reason for hospital admission related to liver dysfunction. It surpasses alcoholic cirrhosis and hepatitis C. And as you can see, it continues to grow. The problem here is what we call ectopic fat, meaning we're storing fat in places that we're not supposed to. Our liver is not in our body to store fat. That's what our fat stores or our fat tissue is for. So when we start storing fat in places we're not supposed to, called ectopic fat, we get things like this. So that's where marbled beef comes from, feeding these cattle lots of grains and processed foods. That's where foie gras, which is fatty liver in a goose, comes from, is they stuff them full of grains. And so we don't want to do that with humans. This map just shows you the prevalence. And these are, again, I say it all the time, these are only the people who know that they have it. I would bet this number is significantly higher because it would include the people who don't know they have it. So what do we do about it? We want to follow an insulin lowering diet. You got to intermittent fast. It's huge. It's one of the biggest muscles you've got when it comes to lowering insulin resistance. Get those carbs out, primarily your refined processed carbohydrates. Prioritize your protein, only focus on natural healthy fats, try to cut out the snacking. And again, the processed food we want to get rid of. The feel great system, I'm going to leave more to Trent to talk about. Just be aware that the Unamate is great for insulin resistance and fasting. The balance is going to decrease the food and whatnot. So we really want you to incorporate feel great whenever you can, because it's just going to make insulin lowering strategies that much better. And again, if you want to follow us at Insulin IQ or come join us if you have more questions or more particular situations you want to discuss, insuliniq.com.
Okay, thank you so much, Lindsay. Now, as you can tell, Lindsay is much smarter than Trent is. I am not somebody that can talk technical terms very well. Lindsay can. So I want to kind of talk about this protocol, how it works. And in a second, I want to show you some proof that will just blow your mind. But for those of you who maybe don't speak medical terminology as well as others do, I want to break this down really simply. So as Lindsay said, whether you struggle with high cholesterol, belly fat, if you have skin tags, if you have the darker pigmentation around your neck, if you've got constant hunger, an inability to lose weight, if you struggle with cravings, migraines, fatigue, right? Insulin resistance is likely the culprit, not just of a problem, but of all these problems. Insulin resistance is at the heart of PCOS, erectile dysfunction, brain fog, mental health problems like anxiety, depression. We talked about the skin problems, skin tag, psoriasis, acne, all of these things, high blood pressure, this belly fat. Insulin resistance is the bad guy, okay? And if you're not sure how to address insulin resistance, then you're stuck. And that's how I felt for years. Yo-yo dieting is stuck and frustrated. I mean, I remember I was on a diet in high school. How sad is that? I would go to lunch with my group of friends, and we would all eat the same thing for lunch every single day. And I would struggle with my weight, and they wouldn't. And it was discouraging and frustrating. What I didn't realize was that insulin resistance was what was really going on. So 100 million American adults, if you feel singled out on this call, join the club. I mean, this is not happening to some of us. This is happening to all of us. Now, if one kid is failing the class, maybe the kid's got a problem. But when all the kids are failing the class, then we have a systemic problem. And that is what is going on with insulin resistance. This is not a you problem. This is not an individual problem. Now, I'm not saying individual responsibility isn't important, don't get me wrong. But our food system has been hijacked, and we are the victims. So if we know insulin resistance is the root cause of these problems, then perhaps I lost my screen share somehow. You guys got my screen share, but mine, it's gone for me. Let's see if I can bring it back. If we know that insulin resistance is the problem, then perhaps by addressing this one problem, as Lindsay says, we can make all these symptoms go away. And that is what we're trying to do. And so I'll draw out how we're going to address this problem and explain how this protocol works, okay? Now, we have progressively gotten sicker and sicker as they have stripped fiber out of the food supply. Processed foods are, by definition, foods that have been processed and removed. The fiber has been removed. And when we started to eat these processed foods all the time as snackers, which is what I have struggled with, is snacking, we started to get sick. We started to get fatter and sicker and have all these problems. So on this protocol, this is what we are doing. If this is breakfast and this is lunch and this is dinner, what most of us are doing is we're skipping a meal. We're also known as intermittent fasting. Now, you can skip whatever meal you'd like, but take my word for it. Chemically, the easiest meal to skip is breakfast. That's when the hunger hormone is at its lowest point. And so if we skip breakfast, the nice thing about this is we've already been fasting all night while we've been asleep. So by skipping breakfast, we're going to extend that overnight fast. We keep our insulin levels low. This allows us to regain some insulin sensitivity. This puts our body in nutritional ketosis, which means we are burning fat for body fuel. We're burning body fat for fuel. And when we do this, we actually feel great. Just like Lindsay said, the brain prefers it. And your work product, my work productivity has never been better. Now, it takes a few days to get used to it, sometimes a couple of weeks, but once your body gets used to burning those love handles, you will love the way you feel, okay? Now, to do this, we have to avoid food. And I know what you're thinking, that's difficult, right? And then before our meals, if we can prioritize fiber, good things happen in terms of our blood sugar control, our insulin control, cholesterol, etc. So what we're doing, like I said, is we're skipping breakfast. Now, when we skip breakfast, we save a little bit of money too. So that's good. More on that in a moment, okay? What we're doing is instead of just trying to willpower our way through this and eat more fiber and fast between meals and stop snacking, we know, at least for me, willpower is not something I can count on. It's not one of my strong suits all the time, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this $5 that we saved when we skipped a meal, and we're going to use it to remove willpower from the equation, so to speak. We're going to buy some things that will make it easier. Now, this that we sip during the morning or whenever we're not eating is something called Unimate. And the Unimate, I've got mine right here. I sip it whenever I'm not eating, when I'm fasting and trying to avoid food, and it makes me forget about food. Now, you can do it hot or cold, whatever you prefer, but it is the best appetite suppressant I have ever found in my life. It works fantastically. Then, before our meals, we are going to take a packet of a blend of scientifically selected fibers. This is not just psyllium husk or dextrin or some random fiber. This is a blend of the best fibers that I'm aware of on planet Earth. This has been clinically tested and proven to eliminate and reduce blood sugar spikes, insulin spikes. It helps with cholesterol. The Cleveland Clinic did a study on this product. The Cleveland Clinic's the #1 heart hospital in the world. They said, and I'm paraphrasing, this product could end heart disease. And I'm again paraphrasing, but they said, no, I won't paraphrase. Let me quote verbatim. And this could reduce the need and or dose for lipid-lowering prescription drugs. There's nothing better that I've been able to find on the planet. So when I'm not eating, I'm sipping this to help me avoid snacking and to avoid hunger. When it's time to eat, I chug this before my meals, drink it very quickly with a small amount of water, and it creates a fiber gel in my stomach, which helps me eat less, but more importantly, controls the glucose and the insulin. We have to control glucose and insulin to control insulin resistance. Now, I went on this protocol, and immediately my love handles just started to disappear. I started talking about this protocol and started getting messages from friends and from strangers who say, hey, man, I have been following this protocol that you've been talking about, and it's completely changed my life. This is a buddy of mine. We've been friends for 20 years. He went on the protocol and lost, I think he's down 70 pounds now. I got to get an updated after picture because he looks even better. And his fasting insulin was dramatically, he reversed his insulin resistance. This is a guy named Shirtless Eddie on TikTok. And Shirtless Eddie lost over 100 pounds, reversed his type 2 diabetes, and now is on TikTok every day talking about how he's a completely different person. I mean, it's amazing. we started to get hundreds of these messages from people all over the world, Spanish speakers, English speakers. I got messages from people in Singapore, in Ireland, people saying, I have been on this protocol. My doctor's blown away. It has changed everything about me. Okay. Now, I want to get into the Q&A portion of this. I really want to talk about this and make sure that we give you the time that you're here for, which is, to get questions asked and answered and to, get tips on how to maximize this protocol. And so I want to ask everybody for a favor before we dive into the Q&A. If you or somebody in your household has been using this protocol, if you've been following this for a week or a month or a year, however long, I don't care. If you have noticed a positive, measurable improvement in your health, and I don't want you to exaggerate, okay? A positive, measurable improvement to your health, if you would just do me a favor and write a sentence or two in the chat. I want to see, we have over 100 people, 140 people on this call. I want people who are new, who have never been on a call like this before, who are maybe on the fence, maybe a little bit skeptical, just to see that this is not me putting on, an act here, but that real people are using this, strangers to me. I want them to see what this product's capable of doing, what this protocol is. Now, for any skeptics, I want to be clear. If you decide to try this protocol, you have absolutely nothing to lose. Every single person who orders the protocol gets a no questions asked, money back guarantee. If you use this properly, it won't let you down. If for any reason you decide it's not your cup of tea, you can just get a refund. But give it 90 days. Approach it with a 90-day mindset. That way, you won't be disappointed if you don't get crazy results like Frankie in the first 30 days, okay? We hope that you get crazy results in the first 30 days. That would be awesome, like Frankie did. But if it doesn't happen, you won't be discouraged. If it doesn't happen, you won't be discouraged. Use it properly, be consistent, and it won't let you down. Okay, now, I'm going to just read a few of these that have come in. And I'm only going to be able to read the ones that are coming in on the live Zoom call. For those of you that are on a restream, we can't see your comments here. Please come to the live call. Okay. Deborah Saunders, down 46 pounds since August 6th. Cassie Grady, husband and I are down a total of 100 pounds between the two of us. Zoom user says 32 pounds, 30 inches in 2.5 months. Amazing. Shannon Davis, who is an athlete and a registered dietitian. Shannon is incredible. Shannon has turned on hundreds of people to this protocol. This is what she does for her living and a hobby, right? She says her triglycerides are down from 250 to 50. So at 200, that's like 80% drop in triglycerides. And her HDL went from a 53 to a 122. Amazing. The one and only Jackie Lackey, down 124 pounds in 14 months. Jackie saw me talking about this on TikTok. She got started on the protocol. She's down over 120 pounds. Her husband reversed his type 2 diabetes. Renee Maddox, it literally saved my husband's foot. Oh, man. That is awesome, Renee. Emery Wetton, triglycerides from 247 down to, I think it says 56, dropped 2 pant sizes, lost 15 pounds. Melissa Bradley, off blood pressure medications, down 35 pounds, lower triglycerides, better sleep, less anxiety, no more GERD or indigestion, no more cravings. Adrian Mejia, been taking it and have relieved my joint pain in 3 weeks. Melissa Dussenberry, I've lost 32 pounds, 19 inches, lowered my blood pressure, my heartburn is gone, my sugar cravings are gone, reversed my PCOS. Anna Colavita, 6 months, no more inflammation from rheumatoid arthritis. Amazing. No more bloating, no more brain fog, energy up, down 20 pounds and 12 inches. Megan Groth, brain fog, migraines, and plantar fasciitis is gone, lost belly fat. Becky Roudman, down 30 pounds, no more prediabetes, brain fog, or restless leg syndrome, no more migraines. Tiave Matagi, reversed prediabetes, lost 62 pounds. My HOMA insulin resistance score went from 8.1 down to 1.7. Amazing. Best sleep in over 20 years. Todd Rigby, lost 25 pounds and eliminated inflammation in my back. Bonnie Hoffman, it's hard to beat the foot, and the type 2, all these have been great. So I don't want to take anything away. But Bonnie Hoffman said it takes away the food noise. You know, you just said that better than I've ever said it. I always say it makes me forget about food. But isn't that true? It takes away the food noise. Love it. That's what I've struggled with for a long time. Marlia E. Celiac, 30 pounds down, gut transformed, brain fog gone, energy up, gallstone issues have improved, and more. Bonnie lost 15 pounds through the holiday season. Rachel Bopp. Rachel, I've lost over 20 pounds, losing inches, feeling better, more energy. Rachel, you were frustrated at the beginning. Things weren't moving for you. I am so proud of you for sticking with it. And oh, hey, I want to talk. Give me a call, Rachel. I want to talk. Ron Kruger, on it for 17 days, lost 17 pounds. Wow, 17 pounds in 17 days. Feel much better, never hungry. Amory Wet, my husband lost 30 pounds and brought his arthritis pain from a level 10 to a 2 in about 90 days. Jennifer Brown. Now, Jennifer Brown is a nutritionist. We've become great friends through this. Down 32 pounds and 26 inches of visceral fat, belly fat. Her cholesterol went down from 210 to 184. Triglycerides cut in half. HDL improved. LDL improved. More energy, no more brain fog. Jennifer, I was so sad to hear about your dad passing away. We love you. You're a part of this community, and you're making a big difference sharing your story. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Henry Cook, down 93 pounds. My blood pressure's 117/77. Nicole Harmon, on system for 11 months. I'm down 20 pounds. Husband's down 30 and off his cholesterol meds. Dr. Tiffany Marie, a physician, off blood pressure medicine after 2 months. Brother's blood sugars decreased from the 400s to 110 on the system and is off insulin. Way to go, doctor. Tracy, no more pain, inflammation gone, lost 67 pounds. You guys, I can't read the rest of these. There's 16 more comments for me to read, and we are running out of time. I want to get to the Q&A, but when I said that we started these calls to change the world, and I said I was going to show you some proof, this is what I'm talking about. Lindsay, thank you so much for what you do. We thank you for your contributions. All of you, thank you so much for taking a chance. I mean, there is nothing more valuable to you than your health. We know that. And for you to give this a shot, to just do a little bit of fasting and a little bit of fiber and see where it takes you, and to have this be the result, I mean, there will come a day in the near future where we will have 1,000 people on these calls or 10,000 people because the protocol flat out works. And if people use it, good things happen. Okay, I'm not going to get to the rest of these. I might check these out later. I wish I could screenshot all of these because these are incredible. I want to open up for Q&A, okay? We just heard a lot of success stories from strangers, which is nice. But there's a chance that some of you are on this call because it's not going so well for you. Maybe you've started the protocol. Maybe you're struggling. Maybe you're reading all these things and you're like, I've gained 4 pounds. What am I doing wrong, right? This is a call for you. We want to make sure that we answer your questions and help you get results. Now, I'm going to bring Lindsay back on because Lindsay is frankly more qualified to answer some of these questions than I am. I'll answer the ones that I can answer. And if we don't know the answer, we will tell you we don't know the answer. Some of these questions we may not be able to help with. Now, I've been told that there is a Q&A feature on these chats or on these Zoom calls. I intend to learn that by next week, but I haven't learned it yet. So for now, I'm going to ask you guys to either raise your hand. There's a little emoji where you can raise your hand if you have a question. And if you have a question, we'll try to bring you on the live call and you can ask your question. Otherwise, you can put a question in the chat and we will do our best to answer your questions as they come in. Speaking of which, first question is in from Elizabeth Ann. Do I stay on insulin while starting this process? What would you say to that, Lindsay?
It's a great question, and it's one we get all of the time. It is extremely important that you work with your doctor or with a competent medical provider. You can come find me at insuliniq.com. I can help you. You do not want to just stop cold turkey any medication when you start this system. You just need to work through the process because everybody's situation is different. So no, don't just quit it and either look me up or work with your doctor.
Yep, great. Yep. And one of the common questions, I'll just answer a question that maybe a lot of people say, when do I stop taking my metformin? And Lindsay's answer is applicable to all medication questions. A medication such as metformin, for example, will artificially push blood sugar down. Well, when somebody goes on this protocol, their blood sugar should naturally start coming down. And so if the blood sugars start naturally coming down, and then they take metformin, it could push the blood sugar to be too low. Now, that could be a bad thing if not done, with caution and care. So that is something that should be done with your doctor. But I mean, the great news is this is an opportunity for you to work with your doctor and reduce or eliminate the drug. And that's what we're going for, right? So great answer, Lindsay. That would be something done with your doctor. Now, Gabriella has her hand up. We're going to bring you on, Gabriella, in just a second. Zoom user, you said been stuck on the system, no weight loss for 3 weeks so far following the program. Zoom user, if you can raise your hand, I'd love to bring you on the call as well. If not, we'll answer it just from the chat here. So Gabriella Sagnes, and Gabriella, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name right. You've got a question. Go ahead and unmute. We're going to bring you on the call.
Hi, I just started the system this week. I received my packets, and I tend to be intolerant to caffeine. It gives me palpitations. And so when I was looking at the Unimati that has caffeine, although I haven't had palpitations, I only take one packet, but I'm still noticing cravings. And it's not really like making me full. Like I take my fiber before my meal and I still eat like I regularly have. Granted, I said I just started. So if I increase the amount of Unimate, will that do something with the caffeine level?
Yeah, two quick questions. How quickly are you drinking your Unimate when you have it? And second question is, how long before your meal are you having your balance?
Right away. I take I just saw that the Unimate goes first, and I was doing it the other way. I was taking the fiber, and I would, at first it got really thick. So they told me that I needed to drink it like right away. So I kind of just chug it down. And then I start drinking the Unimate, but I drink that like relatively quickly because when I drink water, I drink a lot of water. Like I fill these and I drink a lot of water. So I drink it relatively quickly, the Unimate.
Okay, so thank you. And Lindsay, feel free to chime in if you want to take this. But so to be clear, the Unimate is used when we're not eating. So in the morning, we'd wake up, we wouldn't have any balance. Since we're trying to stretch our fast and trying to avoid feeling hungry, I encourage people to try and sip the Unimate slowly. So the Unimate is one to sip. Now you can do it hot or cold. You can add additional water if you want to stretch it, or you can have an additional Unimate. I know you're concerned about caffeine, so more on that in a second. I have found that when I sip it slowly, even though I'm fairly caffeine sensitive, I don't feel any caffeine at all because it's just staggered over such a long period of time. It's not like I'm chugging it like people chug, a Red Bull or whatever, right? So I often have more than one Unimate per day, sometimes two, sometimes even three. So it hasn't caused me a problem. You could try it and see if you get any of the palpitations, but the Unimate is done a la carte. It is done by itself. The balance is used 10 minutes before a meal. So you want to have the balance approximately 10 minutes before a meal and then wait and have your meal. Now, sometimes you'll forget. You might have it right before your meal, or maybe you forget and you take it mid-meal or after the meal. For best results, 10 minutes before the meal. Now, if I got it right, you were waking up and having your balance first and then doing the Unimate. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the switch you want to make.
As far as fasting though, I eat relatively late in the day. So I'll eat, my first meal will be either like at 11 or 12 or sometimes 1. So that the skipping part is not going to be a big deal for me. I mean, I can fast for a long period of time. My concern is that, and this is the problem that I've been having, that throughout the day, then that I get really hungry. And yes, and I do have that. Once I eat, I feel really tired, you know, and lethargic. So that's my questions.
Those are great questions. And, you know, Gabriella, you're brand new and awesome that you're getting started on this. I think as you make that switch, so you don't want to start the day with balance. Balance will come before your meals. Start with Unimate. You can do additional Unimate, and if it's not bothering you, then great. And I'm really excited that you're on this protocol, and excellent question. So thanks for being on the call.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. We've got a bunch of questions coming in the chat, and I want to get to as many as we can. We have limited time. So let's see here. Where do we start? I'm way behind. Okay, been stuck on it. No weight loss for 3 weeks following the program. 3 weeks is a short time. I didn't lose any weight for the first 5 weeks. I felt better, but I wasn't losing weight. Sometimes it's just going to take more time. Make sure you're using it properly. And if you're not sure if you're using it properly, reach out to one of us. Make sure, you know, tell us how you're using it, just like Gabriella just did, and we'll make any tweaks that are necessary. I was using it completely wrong for the first 4 days. So, you know, happens to the best of us. All right. Rachel asked about having more than one Unimate per day. I highly recommend it. I love it. I encourage people to drink as much Unimate as they enjoy. Can you address lipidemia? You want to do that, Lindsay?
I saw that. Sheridan, I wish I was a better expert at lipidemia. Sabine Huggins is your gal. You need to look up. I'll message you. I don't even know that I can spell it right now, but she is an expert in insulin resistance and lipidemia and can be a wealth of information for you.
Okay, Bonnie is asking, what about erythritol in the Unimate? I am not worried about erythritol whatsoever. I drink the version that has erythritol in it. There is a citrus mint version of Unimate that is more natural. It doesn't taste as good, but that is available if you want it. And the end of this month, there is a new Unimate coming out that has a different sweetener in it that's super duper natural. And I've actually tasted it and it's fantastic. There's also a new flavor of Unimate coming very soon. I've not tasted it, but I've been told the name of it. And I'm excited just based on the name, but I can't leak the name yet. Okay. We got a few more. There's been lots of debates on Unimate fuel, the one with the MCT oil in it. Does it break a fast? So guys, let's just be clear. When you drink something with MCT oil in it or fat in it, you will have to burn. Your body's going to have to burn that fat. So temporarily, your body's going to switch over from burning your body fat for fuel to burning the fuel for fuel, the Unimate fuel, that is, right? The MCT oil in that. And then when you're done with that, you haven't spiked your insulin, you haven't, you know, so it goes back to burning body fat. So there's a temporary switch where you're now burning the fat in the Unimate fuel instead of your own fat. But then once you're through that fat, you'll go back to burning your own body fat for fuel. And Lindsay's talked about this in previous calls, where sometimes she likes having a little bit of fat in that fuel in the morning, in that Unimate in the morning, to help somebody become more fat adapted. Am I misquoting you there, Lindsay?
Nope, and it's really great for people with low energy levels as they get started. So,
okay, Noel Watson says, I've been on it for a year. My A1C has only went down from a 7.7 to a 6.4. What does he need to do to take it to the next level? I mean, that's a great reduction, but he wants more.
you know, a lot of people do just fine by not changing their diet and incorporating the system, but there is a vast number of people who actually have to go low carb. And so I'm not sure if you're on a low carb strategy yet, but if you're not, that would be the next step.
Yeah. So guys, sometimes for people that get plateaued, it is too much carbohydrate. I mean, it's that simple. Okay. Tamara Johnson. Hello. Been on the protocol for 1 month. My potassium dropped extremely low, sending me to the ER. Could you address the potential for potassium loss and stress? How to avoid this? Nothing is mentioned in the literature about this. That would be the first I've ever heard of any situation like that, ever. And I have like thousands and thousands of people that I've turned on to this protocol. So I don't believe it's related. Lindsay, do you see anything? Maybe you know more than I do.
No, there's only two things that would come to my mind. And again, these are just guesses because I don't know what medications and stuff you're on. But if you're on a non-potassium sparing diuretic for high blood pressure and dropped our blood pressure, then that might have a little bit more impact. Two, make sure you're on a magnesium supplement. If you don't supplement with magnesium, you don't hold on to potassium like you should. And a lot of times when we go low carb and start fasting, we drop magnesium. And so it could be that fasting drop magnesium, which drop potassium, maybe.
Craig Clay says, do I still need to take probiotics on this? The best thing about the balance is wonderful for your gut. I do not focus on probiotic supplementation hardly at all. I really focus on prebiotic fiber. So Debbie Summers says, I still have high carb cravings on my third box of balance. Just started Unimate this week. Unimate will help a lot with that. In fact, there's some interesting science that suggests that the Unimate might be even better at curbing hunger and cravings than the balance, which, I mean, that's a heck of a statement. But the Unimate is incredible, incredible stuff. And we have some really cool science the company's getting ready to release on it. It is special, special stuff. So incorporate it. Debbie, if you're taking the balance and waiting 20 minutes, that's a little too long. Don't wait that long. Okay, we are about out of time and we've got to end these calls on time. If your question was not, yeah, Ron Kruger, Renee Maddox mentioned that this saved her husband's foot. That's worth repeating. I agree, that is worth repeating. I'm so happy for you, Renee, and so happy for all of you. Thank you for being on the call. Thank you, Lindsay and Frankie. You guys were excellent, excellent guests. We love this. We love all the progress and success. Gabriella and others that are just getting started. We're excited for you, and we're excited to get an update here in a month or two when you've been on the protocol. So we'll see you guys next week. Have a great night. Adios.